In ancient times, those who governed well did not arm. Those who are armed well did not set up battle lines. Those who set up battle lines well did not fight. Those who fought well did not lose. Those who lost well did not perish. This echoes the idea of combat as a last resort, the ideal of winning without fighting offered by the art of war following the teaching of the Tao Te Ching. Zhu Liang also quotes the classic admonition from his revered Taoist text: weapons are instruments of ill omen, to be used only when unavoidable. But he too shares the Taoist historical consciousness that the age of original humanity was already gone, and like Sun Tzu, he was personally involved in a time in raging civil war. So huge work in the Taoist canon therefore contains both rational views and practical teachings for political and military security that follow closely on those of ancient Tzu. The administration of military affairs means the administration of border affairs, or the administration of affairs in outlying regions in such a way as to revive people from major disturbances. This administration is done by authority and military prowess, executing the violent and rebellious in order to preserve the country and keep the homeland secure. This is why civilization requires the existence of military preparedness. It is for this reason that beasts have claws and fangs. When they are joyful, they play with each other. When angered, they attack each other. Humans have no claws or fangs, so they make armor and weapons to help defend themselves. So nations have armies to help them. Rulers have ministers to assist them. When the helper is strong, the nation is secure. When the helper is weak, the nation is in peril. Here, Zhang Hu follows the Sun Tzu directly as he does in his emptiness on leadership and his popular basics. In Sun Tzu's scheme, both civil and military leaderships are among the first conditions to be scrutinized. Zhu follows Sun Tzu and the masters of Hunan. I'm gonna see how can I pronounce this. Hold this 1 minute. Huainang. Huainang. Okay. Huainang. Okay. It's Huainang. Huainang in seeing the strength and leadership based at once on personal qualities and on proper support. In Taoist thought, power was moral as well as material, and it was believed that moral powers manifested itself as self-mastery and as influence over others. To explain the strength of National Defense Force, let me see, hold on. Suji. Zukaha. Zukaha. Zukaha, right. Oh my God. Okay. Zukaha. Right. This in turn depends on the generals entrusted with military leaderships. A general that is not popular is not a help to the nation, not a leader of the army. A general who is not popular is one who, according to another way of reading the characters, denies the people. Sun Tzu emphasizes the unity of wills as a fundamental source of strength, and his minimalist philosophy of warfare is a natural outgrowth of the central idea of common interest. On the basis of this principle, Sahu Liang again quotes the Tao Te Ching to express the ideal of the sage warrior concerned for the body of the society as a whole. Weapons are instruments of ill omens, to be used only when it is unavoidable. Zehu also follows the art of war closely in his emphasis on avoiding action without strategy as well as action without needs. The way to use weapons is to carry out operations only after having first determined your strategy. Carefully examine the patterns of the climate and terrain and look into the hearts of the people. Terrain in the use of military equipment makes patterns of rewards and punishment clear. Observe the strategy of opponents. Watch out for dangerous passes en route. Distinguish places of safety and danger. Find out the conditions of both sides. Be aware of when to advance and when to withdraw. Adapt to the timing of circumstances. Set up defensive measures while strengthening your attack force. Promote soldiers for their ability. Draw up plans for success. Consider the matter of life and death. Only when you have done all this can you send forth armies entrusted to generals that will reach out with the power to capture opponents. Speed and coordination central to success in battle according to Sun Tzu's art of war also derive not only from strategic preparedness but from the psychological cohesive cohesions on which leadership depends. Zhang Hu writes, a general is a commander, a useful tool for a nation, first determining strategies, then carrying it out. His commands a as though borne afloat on a torrent. His conquest is like a hawk striking its prey, like a drawn bow when still, like a machine starting up in action. He breaks through wherever he turns, and even powerful enemies perish. If the general has no foresight, and the soldiers lack impetus, mere strategy without unification of wills, cannons sufficient to strike fear into an enemy even if you have 1,000,000 troops. Mentioning Sun Tzu's classic as the ultimate manual for success strategy, Zehu concludes his essay on military organization by summing up the main points of the art of war as he incorporated them into his own practice, centering on those aspects of the training and mood of warriors that derive from the Taoist tradition. Have no hard feeling towards anyone who has not shown you enmity. Do not fight with anyone who does not oppose you. The effective skill of an engineer can only be seen by the eyes of an expert. The operation of plans in battle can only be set in action through the strategies of Sun Tzu. Following Sun Tzu, Zehud emphasizes the advantage of unexpectedness and speed, capable of reversing otherwise insurmountable odds. Planning should be secret. Attacks should be swift. When an army takes its objective, like a hawk striking its prey, and battles like a river broken through a dam, its opponents will scatter before the army tries. This is the use of momentum of an army. As mentioned before, among the main points of emphasis in Sun Tzu's art of war is objectively, and his classic teachings, how to assess situations in a dispassionate manner. Zahu also follows Sun in this, stressing the advantage of carefully calculated action. Those who are skilled in combat do not become angered. Those who are skilled at winning do not become afraid. Thus the wise win before they fight, while the ignorant fight to win. Here Sun Hu quotes the art of war, directly adding Sun Tzu's warning about the consequences of poor planning, wasteful actions, and wasteful personnel. A country is exalted when it must buy its supplies at high prices. and is impoverished when it ships supplies long distances. Attack should not be repeated. Battles should not be multiplied. Use strength according to capacity, aware that it will be spent with excessive use. Get rid of the worthless, and the country can be peaceful. Get rid of the incompetent, and the country can be profited. Finally, Sung Hughes goes on in the tradition to the Tao Te Ching, the art of war, and the masters of Hunanan, I don't know how to say that word, sorry, to give victory to the unfathomable. A skilled attack is one against which opponents do not know how to defend. A skilled defense is one which opponents do not know how to attack. Therefore, those skilled in defense are not so because of fortress walls. This is why high walls and deep moats do not guarantee security, while strong armor and effective weapons do not guarantee strength. If opponents want to hold firm, attack where they are unprepared. If opponents want to establish a battlefront, appear where they do not expect you. This idea of knowing while being unknown, repeated again and again as a key to success, is one of the strongest links between the Taoism's meditation and the art of war. For the secret of this art of invincibility is precisely the interior detachment cultivated by the Taoists for attaining personal views of objective reality. Certain of the philosophical teaching of early Taoism are commonly used in practical schools as codes for exercises used in personal cultivation. Understanding the practical aspect of Taoist philosophical teaching helps to cut through the sense of paradox that might be caused by seemingly contradictory attitudes. That Sun Tzu calmly teaches the ruthless art of war while condemning war may seem contradictory. In this fact is seen outside the context of total understanding of the human mentality fostered by Taoism's teaching. The stimulated simultaneous appreciation of very different points of view is a powerful Taoist technique whose understanding can be resolved contradictions and paradox. The model of the paradox of the art of war can be seen in the Tao Te Ching, where both ruthlessness and kindness are part of the way of the sage. Heaven and earth is not humanistic. They regard merit beings as straw dogs. Sages are not humanistic. They regard people as straw dogs, wrote the philosopher of the Tao Te Ching, a horrified Western sinologist working in the 1950s, shortly after the truce in Korea, wrote that this passage had unleashed a monster. But to a Taoist, this statement does not represent inhumanity, but an exercise of objectivity similar to Buddhist exercises in personality. In modern terms, This sort of statement is no different from that of any psychologist or sociologist making the observation that the attitudes, thoughts, and expectations of entire nations are not arrived by purely by a multitude of independent rational decisions, but largely under the influence of environmental factors beyond the control of the individual or even the community. As Sun Tzu's classics attest, the place of such an observation in the art of war is not to cultivate a callous or bloodthirsty attitude, but to understand the power of mass psychology, understanding how people can be manipulated through emotions, for example, is as useful for those who wish to avoid this as it is for those who wish to practice it. Seen in this light, the art of war is no more a call to arms than a study of conditioning, is a recommendation for slavery. By so thoroughly analyzing the political, psychological, and material factors involved in conflict, Sun Tzu professed aim was not to encourage warfare, but to minimize it and curtail it. An impersonal view of humanity as not the master of its own fate may be necessary to liberate a warrior from emotional entanglements that might precipitate irrational approaches to conflict. But it is not in the Taoist scheme of things held to justify destructive behavior. The counterbalance to this view is also found in the Tao Te Ching, prefiguring Sun Tzu's teaching in the art of war. I have three treasures that I keep and prize. One is kindness. Second is frugality. And third is not presuming to take precedence over others. By kindness, one can be brave. By fragility, one can reach out. And by not presuming to take precedence, one can survive effectively. If one gives up kindness and courage, gives up fragility and breadth, and gives up humanity for aggressiveness, one will die. The exercise of kindness is battle, leads to victory. The exercise of kindness and defense leads to security. In this classic, Master Sun likens military action to a fire which burns itself out if not stopped. And if his strategy of success without conflict was not always attainable, his strategy for hyper-efficiency could at least minimize senseless violence and destruction. In Taoist terms, success is often gained by not doing, and the strategy of the art of war is as much knowing what not to do and when not to do it as it is knowing what to do and when to do it. The art of not doing, which includes the subordinateness, unnobility, ungraspability, at the core of esoteric mar- Asian martial arts belongs to the branch of Taoism known as the science of essence, the art of doing, which includes the external techniques of both cultural and martial arts, belong to the branch of the Taoism known as the science of life. The science of essence has to do with state of mind. The science of life has to do with the use of energy. Like a classic Taoist text, it is in true balance of these two that art of war is most completely understood. In more modern times, the definitive Taoist statement on this subject is immortalized in Journey to the West, one of the four extraordinary books of the Ming Dynasty, 1368 through 1644, drawing on earlier Taoist sources from wartime China under the duress of Mongol invasions. This remarkable novel is a classic representation of the results of what the Taoist terms would be called studying the science of life without the science of essence, material development without corresponding psychological development, or in the Sun Tzu's term, having force without intelligence. The central figure of this novel is a magical monkey who founds a monkey civilization and becomes its leader by establishing a territory for the monkeys. Subsequently, the Monkey King overcomes a devil, confusing the world, and deals the devil's sword. Returning to his own land with the devil's sword, the Monkey King takes up the practice of swordsmanship. He even teaches his monkey subjects to make toy weapons and regalia to play at war. Unfortunately, through a ruler of a nation, the martial Monkey King is not yet ruler of himself. In eminently logical backwards reasoning, the monkey reflects that if neighboring nations note the monkey's play, they might assume the monkey were preparing for war. In that case, they might therefore take preemptive action against the monkeys, who would then be faced with real warfare, armed only with toy weapons. Thus the Monkey King thoughtfully initiates the arms race, ordering preemptive stocking of real weapons. It has seemed disconcerting to read a 13th century description of 13th century politics. It may be no less so to read a book as old as the Bible describing tactics and used today not only by guerrilla warriors, but by influential politicians and corporation executives. following the disillusioned posture of the Tao Te Ching and the art of war. The story of the Monkey King also prefigures a major movement in modern scientific thought following the climax of the Western divorce of religion and science centuries ago. The Monkey King in the story exercised power without wisdom, disturbing the natural order and generally raising hell until he ran into limits of matter where he was finally trapped. There he lost the excitement of impulsive enthusiasm, and he was eventually released to seek the science of essence under the strict conditions that his knowledge and power were to be controlled by compassion, the expression of wisdom and unity of being. The monkey downfall finally comes about when he meets Buddha, whom the Taoist celestial immortal summons to deal with the intractable beast. The immortals have attempted to cook him in the cauldron of the eight trigrams. That is to put him through the training of spiritual alchemy based on the Taoist I Ching, but he had jumped out still unrefined. Buddha conquers the monkey pride by demonstrating the insuperable law of universal relativity and has him imprisoned in the mountain of the five elements, the world of matter and energy, where he suffers the results of his arrogant antics. After 500 years, a length of Guan Kan Yin, the trans-historical Buddhist saint traditionally honored as the personification of the universal compassion, shows up at the prison of the now repentant monkey and recites this telling verse. Too bad the magic monkey didn't serve the public, as he madly flaunted heroics in the days of yore. With a cheating heart, he made havoc in the gathering of immortals. With the grandiose gall, he went for his ego to the heavens of happiness. Among 100,000 troops, none could oppose him. In the highest heavens above, he had a threatening presence. But since he was dined on meeting our Buddha, when will he ever reach out and show his achievements again? Now the monkey pleads with the saints of his release. The saint grants this on the condition that the monkey devotes himself to the quest for higher enlightenment, not only for himself but for society at large. Finally, before letting the monkey go to set out on the long road ahead, as a precaution, the saint places a ring around the monkey's head, a ring that will tighten and cause the monkey severe pain whenever a certain spell evoking compassion is said in response to any new misbehavior on the part of the monkey. The art of war has been known for 100 generations as the foremost classic of strategies, but perhaps its greatest wizardry lies in the rings of compassion that the master sun slips over the head of every warrior who tries to use this book. And as history shows, the magic spell that tightens its grips is chanted wherever a warrior forgets the ring. Wow. I'm going to end this right here. I just want to say that we have to choose our battles in life. We have to know how to deal with conflict. Conflict does not arrive. I don't feel personally that it has to be done. Physical fights, fighting with weapons, hurting each other with verbal abuse. I think we have to really look at things and understand our history. Where does this all come from? This all comes from our past life. We have